you see in conventional projects. Often you go through a design phase. That can take a huge amount of time. We used to go through traditional design processes of up to a year and including approvals. And the market can change a lot in that time.
Yeah.
And, price escalation is real through that period. And then all of a sudden you get to a stage where you're going out to tender with builders and prices come in way over what was originally anticipated. So the knock-on effect from that is, does the client go further out of pocket to facilitate the project, or do you go back to the drawing board, refine and decrease or whatever it might be with the design to make the project feasible? We set out to offer a portfolio of pre-designed builds.
Yeah.
So we fronted the cost for that up front, and we actually prototyped two houses with a view to test the process and also check costs before we went to market. So we knew that when we delivered it to market, we knew exactly what it was going to cost.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingle, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. Ed, welcome to Behind the Design.
Thanks, Camilla. Thanks for having us today.
So nice to have you.
Nice to be here.
So I would love to dive straight in. Prefabricated houses.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we start?
It's been a long journey for us. We started the journey in 2016. Yeah, part of that, building residential housing.
So your background was in building and carpentry.
Started out doing an apprenticeship, so licensed carpenter, started a building company, moved into the architectural new home space, and then, transitioned into the modular prefabricated space more recently.
And it's interesting because that small space design and small housing, it's been something that's been up and coming for many, many years. I feel like the timing for you was right in the thick of it being, known to people.
Yeah, I think when we launched, it was relatively new on the scene, but now we've noticed there's definitely been a shift in the market and a lot more companies are getting on board with the concept. And I think that speaks volumes to the benefits of that form of building.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's an appreciated design, isn't it? And it's becoming more and more appreciated.
Yeah, I think also accessibility, a lot of the downfalls in traditional construction, such as excess waste, projects going over time, over budget. We can basically eliminate a lot of those issues through our process in the factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you find when you started Fab Prefab that you knew exactly what you were doing? Was it all really clear, or was it sort of
Not necessarily. I think with all new ventures, there's obviously not complete clarity. With that said, that's all part of it, and that's how things grow and develop, and that's what gets you thinking on your feet. I think what we were lucky with between myself and my business partner Tony, we've got collectively over 50 years experience in construction, so we took a lot of learnings into this business, but there's been definitely more learnings along the way. We're 6 years into the journey now, and I think now we're pretty comfortable in our skin as a company. We know our direction. I feel like we've cemented a lot of the early work that we did in terms of design process, our target market, where we wanted to reach, where we wanted our homes to go.
Yeah, who the demographic was.
Who our demographic was, and we've nailed down on that. Now that we're confident in those processes and manufacturing processes in particular, which is very different to site building.
Yes.
We're now going back into another phase of design development. And I think that's a result of a changing market, particularly at the moment, pressures on new housing and price escalations in construction. We've had a real focus on trying to dial in on how we can provide really good design for good value.
Offer a solution.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And then when you talk about, obviously at Unfolded, we're experiencing a similar thing. Clients sort of have this budget.
Yeah.
And as soon as it goes out to tender, it's like, whoa,
Yes.
hang on. Was that my design? Are you sure that's what it's costing?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shock horror moment. So something like prefab is a really beautiful solution. But I guess there's so many questions around when you hear the word prefabricated, you think, oh, cookie cutter.
Yeah.
You think, pick that up and drop it off. But then you also offer the customization piece as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you just touched on, like you see in conventional projects, often you go through a design phase, and in that can take a huge amount of time. Like you see, we used to go through traditional design processes of up to a year, and including approvals, and the market can change a lot in that time.
Yeah.
And price escalation is real through that period. And then all of a sudden you get to a stage where you're going out to tender with builders and prices come in way over what was originally anticipated. So the knock-on effect from that is, does the client go further out of pocket to facilitate the project, or do you go back to the drawing board, refine and decrease or whatever it might be with the design to make the project feasible?
Yeah.
We set out to offer a portfolio of pre-designed builds.
Yeah.
So we fronted the cost for that up front, and we actually prototyped two houses with a view to test the process and also check costs before we went to market. So we knew that when we delivered it to market, we knew exactly what it was going to cost for the consumer. So there's
You've done that legwork.
Yeah, we did that prior legwork before we went to market. And we've got both of those houses still on a property up on the north coast. So
actual builds.
Yeah, so we've got a courtyard house and a minima on a 50-acre property at Hawk's Nest.
Yeah.
And
so just for clarity, that's what these houses are called, minima
and courtyard house.
Courtyard house.
So two ranges designed by two different architects. But the thinking, behind that was also to get them on site. So part of our process is before, customers purchase or go ahead with us, they can actually go and stay in the house and live and feel it before they're actually committing.
It's an experience.
Yeah, it's it's proven pretty valuable in our process.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so, I guess I'm just speaking on behalf of the listeners, let's say, or potential clients who aren't educated in what you and I know about what Fab Prefab offers. I guess the average person might think, oh, is this sort of a shipping container design? That whole shipping container design.
Yeah.
Like Unyoked, for example. There's so many concepts and so many builders and companies out there who have built this same framework, but yours seems to be a lot different to that. It's definitely not that cookie cutter.
It's not. And I've encountered like common misconceptions. People think that we're a small home builder. But we've got a range of 25 designs in various sizes, 3-4 bedroom homes. We're currently building a 3-story new home on a site in Sydney that's effectively, once built, it would resemble a conventionally built house, but it's just done in a controlled process in much quicker fashion, I suppose. Yeah, so to answer your question in short, we've got those smaller designs, but our range extends to 27 shelf designs now.
Wow.
But we also offer customization as well, and that's something that we've only taken on board later in the business's cycle, with a view that we really wanted to stick to those pre-designed builds while we, found our feet in the business and refined all those processes and got those controls in place.
Yeah.
And once we sort of hit that milestone, then we opened up the doors to more customization. So in our factory at the moment, we've only got custom projects running, which has been interesting. It's always interesting to see. Yeah, I think like the Australian consumer always has this, you speak to people and they want to have their spin on things.
Totally.
which
Personal touch.
And that's always going to be part of the process, and we're all for that. Like, we don't want to be stripping out the designers and architects from that process. Like, we're not just like pick it out of a book and then put it on a site. Like, that's not at all the case. It's still a very thorough and thought out process where people are super involved in every step, from when they first meet with us and the architect team, and then working through the planning process to get approval, and then through construction and handover. So we're involved every step of the way through the whole process: plan, design, town planning, council approvals, and construction.
Given I'm pretty aware of your process in terms of you work with specific architects at the moment, and is it specific interior designers as well? Is that sort of open? Like, say for example, I had a client who was really interested in what you do at Fab Prefab. However, they want me to be involved in some of the selections. How would you manage that?
We could integrate that into the process quite easily. Like, we're always open to collaborating with like-minded people. So
we're all in for the same objective.
Absolutely.
Same outcome.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. So that's no issue.
Creative collaboration.
Yeah.
And do you find, in the years that you've been doing what you've been doing, how do you remain confident in this same concept? Is it more the referrals that keep coming in, or because it's quite a unique approach?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think confidence comes from experience, and I've been lucky enough to be involved in some large and pretty trying projects, and I think you have doubts when you enter those projects, but one thing to always keep in mind that, if you're determined, and when you start something, you'll finish it in good fashion, and the learnings you take away from that experience put you in good stead for the future.
And so, it sounds like you're pretty busy. You're managing director.
Yeah.
How do you manage work-life balance with your beautiful wife and your 2 kids, Gemma, who I grew up with?
Yeah.
I feel like I went to school with her.
Well, I mean, that's most important. Certainly home life balance and making sure that you're there for family. And luckily enough, a lot of our team are at a similar stage in life. The vast majority of us have young kids, so we really look to promote that work-life balance in the workplace, and understand that there's commitments outside of work, and there are times where that needs to come first.
Yeah. And so, if we go back to the building materials that you use and that point of difference, how do you select those? Have you formed a bit of a, I know we're talking about the different laminates and things like that, and the different timbers that you work with, or finishes, if we keep it broad. Is that something that you're quite, okay, cool, we've nailed this now, this is what we do, this is how we do it? Or is that sustainability, eco-friendly materials space ever evolving for you and your team?
It's ever evolving. We're always assessing what's introduced into the process and how it's gone through each build. I personally can't take credit for the finishes of the build. But I suppose in its raw form, our structure is a big component. So we work with a product called cross-laminated timber, which is a mass timber product. It's effectively, I suppose in layman's terms, large sheets of plywood that we can...
Terms are good.
Yeah. So we get... Well, our modules that we build in volumetric, and they're anywhere up to 12 metres long, 4.5 metres wide, and 3.8 metres high. And they'll be finished in the factory, like fully tiled, fully fitted out and tested prior to going to site. And then we're basically just taking those large sections and assembling them. And the benefit of the CLT panels, we get full walls and full floors manufactured. And then the assembly process is super quick. Yeah. So, for example, we started one on Monday, and by close of work tomorrow, we should have a commercial building fully assembled in our factory that's due to be delivered to Sydney Airport. And that's 200 square metres of structure that we'll put together in 3 days. So really fast-tracked. But those panels, they end up being the finished product of the walls, ceilings and floors in most cases. And we're always sort of tinkering with different finishes that can be applied to that. So in terms of, subtlety or full coverage over the timber. And then, moving into material palettes, like things like joinery that you touched on.
Yeah.
We've always got a keen focus on sustainable materials. So we're using a range at the moment that's 100% recycled board for all of our joinery panels.
Love this. Yes. So good.
Yeah, that's a product called Bella Decor. It's they make,
That's what we were discussing the other day.
Yeah. They make beautiful, really, really nice veneer and melamine products.
And their products, if for someone like myself as an interior designer, where clients are wanting not only functional, sustainable, but beautiful.
Yeah.
They're really wanting their space to be all of the things. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of time to find those products. So when you mentioned Bella Decor and I had a little look, I thought, and they're stylish.
Yeah.
That's a win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think in terms of material palette, that's kind of pretty cemented and has been pretty cemented from the start. We've got a display suite in our factory that was one of the prototypes that we built. It's been there for 4 years now, and the new ones that we're building resemble that one very closely. So we haven't strayed too far, but we're constantly keeping a finger on the pulse with materials that are available, sustainability benefits, starting to talk about repurposing, excess material that's generated through the construction process. Like, for example, a lot of our timber offcuts from the panels and so on are repurposed into fixed furniture in our houses for things like desks, kitchen islands.
Yeah, headboards.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Cabinetry.
Yeah, so just looking to minimise waste through our process, which, we've got that pretty down pat too.
That's so
we don't, there's not much waste that goes off the factory floor.
That's so good. And so when you mentioned a 200 square metre dwelling, let's call it, how big is your factory?
Our factory is, I think, close to 2,000 square metres.
Okay, so you've got room to build these small dwellings, and then do they just go out through a driveway?
Yeah, they go out the factory doors on a truck.
Let's talk layman's terms.
Well, yeah.
How do you get them out the door?
We've got some pretty big overhead cranes in our factory that pick up the units, place them on trucks. They drive out the door, and then we have another crane set up on site that positions them in their final location. At any one time, we've got a number of projects running in there.
And do you dabble quite a bit on the interiors? Like, how does when we talk about customization versus the 27 existing, let's call them templates, floor layout templates, how does that work then if a client sort of goes, yeah, cool, 2 better, that's all I needed, tick?
Yep.
If it is something that they say, can we extend that master bedroom a little bit? I really wanted an extra ensuite. How does that all work with plumbing, and do you do all that layout yourself?
We do that, like obviously the architects do that, but we always make them aware of the process that's going to encounter. Like if they stray from our shelf design, then there's obviously time in redesign and so on. But, people are willing to go through that if it gives them the ultimate result for what they're looking for their home and their site, which is really important. Like they need to be completely comfortable with the outcome. But just making them aware of what the process is.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty thorough briefing phase at the start of any project. So we talk through the different pathways and what the effects of those decisions will be.
Yeah, interesting. And so when it comes to, I know we touched on, having suppliers who can come in and show you the latest products and things like that.
Yeah.
What inspires you and Tony? Do you ever have moments where you get in on a Tuesday morning and, hey, on the weekend I saw this, is that something that sort of happens for you guys, or are you quite, now that you've got what you...
No, always...
Have you grown?
Always interested to see what the collective industry is doing. And I love seeing what others are doing. And a lot of the innovation and thoughtful things that people are putting out there.
Yeah.
That's definitely inspiring. But I think, first and foremost, probably what inspires the day-to-day is delivering something that ultimately each stakeholder of a project's happy with. So, the customer, first and foremost, the architect, and also, our team, and making sure that our team are really taking away a lot out of each project. But yeah, I suppose the ultimate inspiration is always family as well, and that's always at front of mind. Keeps you going.
2 bubs.
Yeah. For sure.
So if we go back to little Ed, high school Ed.
Yeah.
Is this always been your dream? I mean, obviously, maybe not Fab Prefab per se, but running your own business. Have you always had that dream goal, or?
Well, I wanted to be a builder for as long as I can remember, even before school, I think. And then I was itching to get out of school and get into a carpentry apprenticeship. Spent most of my time at school in the woodworking room, making furniture and so on. So, yeah, I can confidently say I was going to be a builder from the get-go, I think.
It was a sure sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's hands-on.
Yeah.
Woodwork's so good. Like when I remember the guys, in the woodwork space, I just loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's quite hands-on. And so then you went into, did you study at uni or did you go straight into
I did a stint at uni in construction management, but prior to that, did a carpentry apprenticeship. And then, got my builder's license and started a company in 2013. I started Callanan Constructions. As I said before, we're focused in the architectural conventional space. So, just building that style of home, and then sort of transitioned into Fab Prefab in 2017.
17, yeah.
Yeah.
Still there.
Absolutely.
Good. And do you see yourself, this is it now? Oh,
for sure. I think the things I've talked about earlier, just the benefits of streamlining process in a factory just makes the construction process so much easier, being able to systemize things, quality control and so on. So definitely the future for us.
And it's so interesting. Like, I always love diving into the collaboration between builder and interior designer.
Yeah.
And I think someone like yourself, you're not just the average builder. You know, you've got a whole business that you're running, that even though you've got the architects coming in, you're still very heavily involved in that design, aren't you?
Well, my role is to be involved in every part of the process. So design, estimating, not so much on the tools these days as much as I'd like to be, but certainly like to get out and amongst the guys. Yeah.
And it is interesting because I think, chatting with different builders over the last, will be 5 years in November of Unfolded, which is just wild. That's
time flies, doesn't it?
Time flies. And just working with different builders who have such different approaches, you know, like there is no just average builder anymore. They've all got their own, let's call it direction, approach.
Absolutely.
Quirks, all these other things that they might offer that you would have never thought. Like, it's just so...
Well, that's important. That's how you make it your own, I suppose, and that's what attracts clientele.
Yeah.
Get on board with that thought process.
Totally. And do you have any favourite projects to date that you're super proud of?
I mean, it's always hard to dial in on one. Probably the biggest jump from going, well, I suppose the largest house that I moved into was a house called Castle Cove House. That's a pretty memorable one. That's when...
In Mossman?
Castle Cove, Lower North Shore, Sydney.
North Shore,
not far from Stone Throw from Mossman, but that's first of all, that's where Tony and I teed up, and that's where our journey began. We worked on that project together, it was a pretty testing and amazing outcome for a house, but a really good team, working with an architect that really got me thinking and understanding like what the outcomes were that he wanted.
Yes.
And also clients that were just supportive, and that always makes building so much easier. But then moving into like what we do now, the prototyping phase was something different and exciting for Courtyard House and Minima. Like that was the start of something that was different, and knew it was the start of something that would move into the future and be a concept for, greater things. So
it's pretty exciting.
that'll be memorable too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you ever found, if you don't mind me diving into a bit more of a personal touch, have you ever found yourself feeling that, oh, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? That sort of imposter syndrome that people can get. Have you ever felt that type of thing, or have you always felt pretty streamlined in your process?
Not really. Always pretty comfortable in my skin, I suppose, and where I was headed, and just trusting that, working hard will
the process
lead to a good outcome.
Yeah.
Haven't really felt like that, I don't think, in the industry.
That's good.
Yeah.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you have doubts for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just there to be overcome, I think.
So what are your thoughts around the psychology of design in the way of, bringing the outdoor in, how people feel in the space, ergonomics? I feel like it's something that you and I know a lot about, and, we study it and we experience it, but a lot of people don't dive into all of that type of thing when they're building their homes.
Yeah, I suppose there's probably a number of angles there to be considered. I think, firstly, as a builder, you want to ensure good performance of a house, and through things like thermal performance and insulation and so on, reduction of moisture and complete reduction of moisture.
Yes.
And ensuring comfort in the space in that way. But then I suppose more from a architect and designer's mind, not so much from a builder's mind, thinking practically, I'm sure, and from working with them, they're always thinking about how people interact with space, how different spaces within the house connect with each other. Implementing things like cross ventilation is something that we're always sort of conscious of, to make sure that you're getting good airflow through a home. Lighting is obviously super important.
Yeah.
Like management of solar, shading, and those kinds of things too.
And is solar something, because that's obviously a big topic at the moment, is, solar panels, is that something that you can add on to your current templates? Like, is that just sort of a...
Yeah, so solar in the physical means, in terms of solar panel, you can add them onto our buildings. We actually build a number of our homes completely off-grid, so they come fully battery generated and equipped with solar panels and so on. Our factory is actually fully solar run, so we don't draw on any town mains. So we run in credit a lot of the time in the factory. And, we're drawing a lot of power with tools and machinery that we run. So, that's the first step in sustainability for us.
Yeah, that's
for
huge.
Sure.
And is that something that when you, are you leasing the factory, or you own the factory?
Owned by an interested party, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so you can just add that on?
Well, we actually built our factory, so we did at the time of construction.
Yeah. That's so interesting, because I think that's a really big... like we were talking about earlier, like biophilic design and things like that, it's very important. People are wanting to learn about it.
Yeah.
It's not just a recycled timber anymore. It's like there's so much depth.
Yeah. Well, I think, biophilics for us stems from the use of full timber panels. So, biophilics being implementing natural products into a space. So we're pretty close to 100% full timber construction with a lot of our builds. Also looking at full life cycle of the materials being used in a structure. So
it's that longevity, durability piece.
Yeah,
it's so interesting. And I think as interior designers, it's just so nice to be able to have these conversations with our builders, because we can specify so much. And to be able to collaborate with someone like yourself and say, all right, cool, this is the design we're after, this is the detail we're wanting to go to. How can we add in a little bit of that element of making this a little bit more natural or sustainable or eco-friendly? Because sometimes we're just in our own lane, right?
Yeah.
And you're in your lane, but just coming together on the knowledge that we've both got.
Yeah.
It's really advantageous.
Yeah, well, I suppose communication's key to that, isn't it?
It is. And just keeping inspired by new products, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. 2 final questions to wrap up. How can people find you?
The first thing we encourage people to do is come and see us in the factory. then via our website, www.fabprefab.com.au, or on Instagram, social media.
Yeah. And what's your Instagram handle?
Fab.prefab.
So, final question.
Yeah.
Bit of a quirky one. If you had a warning label, what would it be?
I think it'd have to be something to do with my height, being close to 6'6".
Yeah, 6'6". I thought it was 6'4".
Maybe. Nah. I'm close to 6'6".
In between.
In between.
What would the warning label say?
Yeah, something to do with overhead.
Overhead objects.
Warning of overhead objects or something like that, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you.
It's been awesome. Loved, sort of diving into all of that with you.
Yeah.
And what a good setup you've got here. And congratulations on everything you're doing for the local industry up on the Central Coast and hopefully further abroad in due course.